Hello, good day everyone. So we are now in the 6th week of our lesson and our topic for today is about one-to-one functions. Okay, so let's have here an introduction of one-to-one. The term one-to-one relationships refer to relationships of two items in which one can only belong with the other. These relationships can be referred to in a mathematical sense in which there are equal numbers of items, or when creating a database when one row directly corresponds to another row. So let's have here an examples of one-to-one relationship in real life. So one person has one passport and the passport is owned by one person. So for example, that passport belongs to me. So my passport does not belong to you. So ako nang ginasya ang passport ko. Also, sa ID, as a student, mayroon kita individual na ID. So, hindi pwede nga kung wala ID ang classmate mo, ipahula mo man ang ID mo sa iya because that ID only belongs to you and that is a one-to-one function because one ID is belong to one person. We have also another example. Each student must complete one worksheet and the worksheet can only be completed by one student. So unless niya kung group activity na siya. So since individual ni siyang activity, ang isa ka papel dapat iyalang gid nga papel. So hindi pwede nga ang answer mo answer man sa classmate mo. Next, we have leopards have individual spot patterns and each spot pattern belongs to only one leopard. So another example also is having a girlfriend only belong to one man and also having a girlfriend or having a boyfriend only belongs to one woman. So isa lang gid hindi pwede nga ang girlfriend niya girlfriend sang friend niya, girlfriend man sang iba niya tao. So, hindi na siya one-to-one function. Okay, so let's have here the concept of one-to-one functions. A function f is one-to-one if every number in its range corresponds to exactly one number in its domain, and that is for all x sub 1 and x sub 2 in the domain of f. If x sub 1 is not equal to x sub 2, then f of x sub 1 is not equal to f of x sub 2. Equivalently, f of x sub 1 equals f of x sub 2 only when x sub 1 is equal to x sub 2. So we have here two sets. So we have set x and set y. So sa set x, may kita numbers and then sa set y, may kita letters. So sa each element sang aton x, may ara ga-correspond nga element sa aton nga set y. So for example, si 1 naga-correspond sa kay D, and then si 2 naga-correspond sa kay B, si 3 naga-correspond kay C, and si 4 naga-correspond si A. So wala kita diri nakitaan nga si A, si 1 naga-correspond kay D, naga-correspond man sa kay B. No, kay hindi na siya one-to-one function. So magambala kita one-to-one, one x element naga-equivalent or naga-correspond man sa 1 y element. So, hindi pwede nga duwa kabilog ang gina-correspond sa aton nga x element. For example, B1, D kag B. So, hindi siya pwede. So, pwede yang si 1 kag si B or si 2 kag si D. So, pwede basta as long as isa lang ang gina-correspond siya nga range or y element. Applying the definition of one-to-one function is not always easy. Functions like f of x equals x cubed plus 2x plus 1 are quite complicated to test. However, given the graph of a function, there is a simple procedure for determining if the function is one-to-one. If a horizontal line intersects the graph of a function in more than one point, then the function is not one-to-one as shown in figure A. However, if each horizontal line intersects the graph in at most one point, then the function is one-to-one as shown in the figure B. So, kung given yung equation sang aton nga functions, kabudlay siya i-identify kung one-to-one siya. Unless, kung i-graph ta. So, kung i-graph ya, hapos lang mag-identify kung one-to-one siya, kay may ara kita ginatawag ng horizontal line test. So, sa aton horizontal line test, nag-aagi na siya sa aton yung graph. So, we have here sa figure A, may graph kita nga f of x equals x squared plus 1. So, nakita nyo ni ang red nga curve. This is our graph, and then ang blue line, amo ni siya aton horizontal line test. So, madraw kita na in any parts ng graph, and then let's count kung kapila siya nag-intersect sa aton graph. So, let's count. First, dili siya nagbunggo sa aton yung graph, nagtabuay sila nga duwa. And then, sa second part, dili naman sila nagtabuay. So, it means twice nag-intersect ang aton yung horizontal line sa aton nga graph. Therefore, figure A or function f of x equals x squared plus 1 is not one-to-one function. So, hindi siya one-to-one kay kaduwa siya nag-intersect sa aton nga graph ang aton horizontal line test. So, let's try f of x equals 2x minus 1. So, muna siya aton nga curve, and then this is our horizontal line. So, let's count kung kapila siya nag-agi sa aton graph. So, dili lang sila nag-intersect or nagtabuay. So, since once lang sila nagtabuay, therefore, f of x equals 2x minus 1 is a one-to-one function. Okay, so let's have here an example number 1. Determine f of x equals square root of x minus 2 is one-to-one algebraically and graphically. So for the solution, in algebraically, we will use the definition of one-to-one functions. Let x sub 1 and x sub 2 be non-negative real numbers with f of x sub 1 is equal to f of x sub 2. So we assume that these two functions are equal by letting our variable x into x sub 1 and x sub 2. So we have now square root of x sub 1 minus 2 is equal to square root of x sub 2 equals 2. So what are we gonna do para ma-remove this negative 2? Okay, so we add both sides of the equation by 2, or that is applying addition property of equality. So we add both sides of the equation by 2 to remove negative 2. Since negative 2 plus 2, that is 0. So mabili na lang is square root of x sub 1 is equal to square root of x sub 2. Since meron kita radical sign, to remove radical sign, we square both sides of the equation. And then, we have now x sub 1 is equal to x sub 2. Since we proved that x sub 1 is equal to x sub 2, therefore, f is one-to-one function. Okay, so we will graph f of x equals square root of x minus 2 by using a graphing calculator. For that, it is easy for us to graph our function. So, kung gusto nyo i-graph siya manually, you can use table of values. Pero if nabadayan kung mag-graph, you can use a graphing calculator. So, making horizontal line in any part of the graph, the line still intersects the graph at one point. So, muna siya ito niya graph, ang curve, ang square root of x minus 2. This is our graph, and then this is the horizontal line test. So, you try to count kung kapila siya nag-agi sa aton graph. So, it only intersects our graph once. So, I am allowing you to use a graphing calculator. Sa mga hindi ka-download graphing calculator, pwede ka mo kapangayo pictures sa inyong classmates, i-screenshot ng nila sa mga graphing calculators. Okay, so let's have example number 2. If f of x equals 2x plus 3 is one-to-one algebraically and graphically. So in algebraically, we will use the definition of one-to-one functions. Let x sub 1 and x sub 2 be non-negative real numbers with f of x sub 1 is equal to f of x sub 2. Okay, so let's change all the variable x from the given function into x sub 1 and x sub 2. Then we equate this function. So we have now 2x sub 1 plus 3 equals 2x sub 2 plus 3. So, paano tani ma-remove si positive 3? That is by subtracting both sides of the equation by 3, or that is subtraction property of equality. So, ang nabili na lang is 2x sub 1 equals 2x sub 2. Since we have here the coefficient positive 2, paano tani siya ma-remove? Okay, so we are going to multiply both sides of the equation by 1/2, or pwede man we will divide both sides of the equation by 2. So 2x sub 1 times 1/2, that is x sub 1, and then 2x sub 2 times 1/2, that is x sub 2. So since we proved that x sub 1 is equal to x sub 2, therefore f is 1-to-1 function. So using a graphing calculator, we can graph now our 2x plus 3 na function, and making horizontal line in any part of the graph, the line still intersects the graph at one point. So dili siya nga part nag-intersect sa aton nga graph. So mayara ko da mga examples sa aton nga modules. You try to graph it using a graphing calculator to determine if it is a one-to-one function. Okay, so that's it. If you have questions, kindly message me to our group chat and submit your outputs or your answer sheets before or during na lang sang first week sang November until 8 weeks. Thank you for listening. Keep safe, everyone.